Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to our press conference this morning. We'll be having an address by the leader of the opposition and president of the United Party, Dr. Yamina Parliamentarian. At this time, I will go right into it and let him do his address.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Laverne, and thank you to the media, for those who are present here today, and for those who I know are following online. Thank you very much for being a part of this media briefing, media conference. I am going to deal with several matters that are currently of particular interest to us and to the general public. The first, of course, is and I say of course because I know it's a very, very current topical issue, and that is the hosting of Cricket T20 World Cup games here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was recently announced, that is on September 22nd, by the ICC, the world governing body for cricket, that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 6 other Caribbean countries, and 2 US venues will host T20 World Cup cricket in June next year. As a cricket fan and a Vincentian, I am happy that international cricket will return to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that we will have a chance to see T20 World Cup games here. This is a very good thing for us, for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and cricket fans, I believe, will be delighted at the prospect of having T20 games played here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Certainly the persons who I've spoken with, just casually in my community, they are looking forward to it as cricket fans. For too long, we've been left out of international cricket and major regional cricket events, such as the CPL, the Caribbean Premier League. Despite the fact that this government spent a lot of money 15 years ago when the ODI, the World Cup competition, was played in the Caribbean. You will recall then we got some warm-up games, but none of the official matches. We really do hope that all goes well this time around and that we have a successful event. It is important to note, however, that while we look forward to the exciting on-the-field events, the play by the various teams, it's not only fun and games. We must also look beyond the fun and games aspect of this important matter, especially as the government has announced that it will be spending an estimated $12 million on the Arnesvale playing field in the lead up to the World Cup. Therefore, we need to look at the event much more broadly than that. We have to look at the fact that it is or ought to be an opportunity to create jobs and economic opportunities here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Also, this should be a springboard. We should see it as a springboard for renewing interest and investment in our local cricket, from the school level to the national level, in all formats of the game, and for male and female cricketers. Opportunities, as we well know, to play professional cricket are ever increasing worldwide. We should help to prepare our young people to take advantage of those opportunities. We see the 10-10 tournament that is done here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that has grown over the years with considerable success, provides some opportunities for our local cricketers. In sum, the government owes it to all of us, to fellow Vincentians, to set out how it is going to take advantage of this opportunity. It needs to indicate how many jobs, temporary or otherwise, they expect may be generated from the event, how much investment we can expect to receive, and what it will cost the government to have the tournament here. It should also have a plan to indicate how this event will be used to reinvigorate cricket in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We know that the cost-benefit analysis is one of the things that, for example, Jamaica said they took into account in deciding how to invest the monies in cricket, whether to go for the hosting of the games or to invest at the grassroots level. It is my view that we can have both in this event here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So, in sum, we must have a plan. The government must indicate that they have a plan to make the most of this opportunity for us all in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We cannot squander the opportunity by being unprepared for it. It's not enough to just get the games. We have to think of how we can leverage this to the benefit of all Vincentians. So, the NDP is expecting that the government will do all it can to ensure also that local contractors have a chance to bid on any work that is being done at the Arnoldsville Sporting Complex, to prepare and to ready it for the World Cup. Opportunities must be available to the local contractors, and those contractors should be encouraged and supported as much as possible to bid for the necessary work. Remember what I said. This is not just about fun and games. It must also be an opportunity for us to create jobs and business opportunities for our people here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The government must also give us the assurance that the upgrades that they intend to do will be done in time for the 2024 tournament. That's June next year. That's not so far away. And keep the nation informed about the costs of the improvements that is necessary for building public confidence and support in the event. Finally, the government must also ensure that the facility is utilized to the fullest following the World Cup, and that its use, especially by our young people, will not be unnecessarily restricted. We know that this is a delicate matter, sensitive matter in many communities where public facilities have been put under lock and key and are not being properly utilized by the various communities. Obviously, if you're going to spend $12 million to upgrade a facility, it can't just be for one event and then be off limits to the local people to use for their own sporting development. Again, the government has to demonstrate this by putting forward a plan as to how the facility will be used going forward in the future, and that it not be unnecessarily restrictive in terms of its access to sporting events and other events here for our young people in particular. So we look forward to the coming games and to finally having international cricket back here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Well done to Cricket West Indies, and thank you to all those who put the effort in to make this happen. Now we have to make it benefit us. That will not happen automatically. We have to decide how to use that. That is the government leading the way to say how we're going to use this to benefit sports in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now I wish to turn to the second matter that I want to address, and this is something that has been in the public domain for some time over the past several weeks. In my last press conference, you will recall, in the wake of the mass shootings in Kingstown, I called for the replacement of Colin John as Commissioner of Police. It was recently announced that Mr. John will no longer be the Commissioner of Police. I am not so naive to think that the government heeded my call and decided to replace Mr. John with someone else. But it has been reported in the media that Mr. John has sought and was granted early retirement. In fact, the word was that he was supposed to have left, I believe, last Friday. I wish him well in his retirement. He's a relatively young man, so I can expect that he will find worthwhile pursuits to engage his talents and training in the years ahead. But for us, what is most important is who will replace him, and why is it taking so long, after he had announced some time ago his intention to leave, for there to be a new Commissioner of Police appointed? Who will be the new Commissioner of Police? What criteria will be used to choose the new commissioner? I believe the general public require that such a person meet certain basic criteria to instill public confidence in the police service and to make it more effective as a crime-fighting institution. So, the person would need to be an independent-minded person, meaning to say that they do their job professionally. Where the evidence takes you, you go with the investigation. Where there needs to be an investigation, that the commissioner leading the way demonstrates the independence to do so. That a new commissioner must command the respect of all officers. That is critically important, especially in a disciplined organization as the police service. Should have a good record as a crime fighter, somebody who will stand up and do what is necessary to bring law and order, to maintain it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to investigate offenses from the smallest to the most serious offenses, so that they can have confidence, public confidence built in the police service. The commissioner must also be a good communicator, especially with the public. That has been sorely lacking over the years in the police service. The new commissioner must be willing and able to engage the public on important matters and to keep the public updated on the status of high-profile investigations. Too often we find that there are high-profile offenses, primarily homicides, and for a few weeks there is some discussion of it. Then the matter simply falls away from public attention and we hear very little or nothing about it. In order to instill public confidence in the work of the police service, so that the public will be engaged as well in helping the police to do their work. There needs to be more effective communication from the police with the general public in order to become more effective. And so the new commissioner should be somebody who would be willing and has the skills to lead in that way as well. I said at the outset of my comments on the commissioner that this replacement should have been made for some time now. It does not help in any way or inspire confidence in the police service and the public to have such an important appointment dangling for such a long time. So, call on the government to ensure that this appointment is done soon. There's a lot that needs to be done to deal with a lot of outstanding, when I say outstanding, I mean unsolved offenses in this country. There's an urgency within the public to have the police doing their work and doing so effectively, and you can't do it with the leadership hanging in the balance, undecided for over a week. That cannot instill confidence among the police and the rank and file, and certainly not amongst the members of the public. It needs to be dealt with, and dealt with immediately. Now, there is an important matter that you have heard us talking about, that is in the New Democratic Party and members of the opposition, the situation in the country regarding young people, and specifically as we return to school in September, dealing with our education system. So I return to this subject matter. And I addressed it before in this forum and elsewhere, because it is critically important to the success of our country and certainly to the success of our young people. It has returned recently to the public limelight because of comments that were made by the Minister of Education recently. Of course, I heard that my visit to the community college recently also have attracted some attention from the government side. I don't suppose that I'm not supposed to go to the community college. But in any event, more important matters have to do with the state of our education system and the direction in which it is going. A few days ago, the Minister of Education, Mr. Curtis King, in a stunning admission, stated that the education system has failed to address the current needs of students and the Vincentian economy. That it was fundamentally on the wrong course, the wrong path, and that path was inherited from colonial times and necessary corrections must be made. 20-something, 2 decades in government, and you come to this realization at this point. From the horse's mouth. Here is a quote from a local paper, I believe it was from the Searchlight, of the minister making the acknowledgement. And I'll read it because I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity to look at it. And this is how it's been quoted in the paper. He says, and what we need today, this is quoting the minister, is to recognize the new society that we are now living in and accept that the education system, which was basically formulated to deal with a past society, the old society, it is no longer, let us say, totally relevant to the developmental needs that we have identified that will transform our society and enhance persons' living standard. This is what the minister was quoted as saying. And he went on to say, and again quoting, and all basically have come, that is to say, the educators who have considered this matter. All basically have come to the conclusion that the education system as we have it, especially in the English-speaking Caribbean, is too much based on the traditional grammar school model that was utilized in England, with a heavy emphasis on academic training, and there is, in fact, a weakness where skills are concerned. Now, this is a matter that has been ventilated publicly. Certainly, we have, in the Democratic Party, made a call. You've heard the minister, our Shadow Minister in Education, the Honorable Terence Holiday, has spoken about it many times. And I also, in an address last year on education, spoke about it. But the minister, the title of the article that I read from the newspaper, it said, the headline was "Urgent Changes Needed to SVG Education System," quoting the minister. Yet, we see from even the pronouncements that were made in that radio address that there was no acknowledgement as to what needed to be done and how the government was going to go. You would think that if there was an urgent need, as he has identified, that there would be some effort to say, well, listen, this is where we need to go. Here is what I'm laying down as a guideline as to how we are going to move our education system where it needs to go. Never mind that the government has dropped the ball on this for so many years, of self-congratulations that they have done in their accomplishments in education, only to come 22 years later after being in office to the admission that you're going in the wrong direction, basically, that you have to have a course correction. In my address on education last year, I had much to say about the misplaced focus on the curriculum, and in particular, the neglect of technical and vocational education. For too long, our education system has focused on the traditional academic programs that culminate with CSEC, CAPE, and a traditional university degree. So what I said then is that our schools should be equipped to provide and assess persons in the skills and technical aptitudes that are needed for jobs and economic development. Also, the Caribbean Vocational Qualification, CVQ, are needed, is part of the process towards achieving a cadre of certified skilled workers promoted by the CARICOM single market and economy. This is what I noted in my address last year. Though, and I went on to say, this CARICOM initiative was established way back in 2007. It was only in 2016, almost a decade later, that St. Vincent and the Grenadines was granted approval to offer Caribbean Vocational Qualification, CVQs. But while the other CARICOM territories are offering the Caribbean Vocational Qualifications at levels 1 and 2, with much success in many areas at the secondary school level. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have in effect been offering limited skills training to a limited number of out-of-school youths. So it has not been integrated in the way that is required by, has been followed by other countries in the Caribbean into the core academic system. I went on to say, indeed, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been left behind our regional counterparts because the necessary instruments to facilitate implementation at the secondary school level are not in place. Our students have been and continue to be left behind in technical and vocational education. So we see why after 2 decades in power, Prime Minister Gonzalez would lament some time ago that there was not enough skilled tradespersons to take up jobs in our construction industry. And now we have the Minister of Education who laments likewise that the education system is misguided in its current focus on traditional academics and its relative lack of emphasis on technical and vocational education. And in that address, which I presented to the nation and asked essentially for a dialogue, a conversation on it from the government, I called for a number of urgent changes. And those changes are relevant, and so I repeat them here again. Among other things, I said, it is critically important that the following strategies be implemented immediately. You see, I didn't just talk about it. I put forward some plans. You could criticize them if you wish, but we have at least a starting point for a discussion. I don't go on the radio and just talk about it and say we have a problem and then not address how we will deal with that problem. So this is what I said back then. It is critically important that these strategies be implemented immediately. To ensure that technical and vocational education is well integrated within the education system, so that every student, not just the out of school or dropouts from secondary school, but that every student has an opportunity for a comprehensive education. Secondly, to earn the CVQ certification, candidates must demonstrate competence in reaching CARICOM-approved occupational standards developed by industry experts and employers in a range from level 1 to 5. Thirdly, I recommended, we must ensure competency-based curricula linked to the CVQ framework to be established in all secondary schools and other suitable settings in the workplace and the wider community. Further, we must establish a qualification framework to enable learners to move seamlessly between academic and vocational qualifications in formal and informal educational settings. This will include apprenticeships for on-the-job training. We must also revamp and expand the YES program. You heard me talk about that during the election campaign, and I repeated it in my national address on education. To revamp and expand the YES program to provide opportunity for real on-the-job training, not just make work, in public and private sectors, while earning a living wage paid partly by government and partly by private employers. The proposal there was, and still is, that you have the YES program expanded to the private sector, and the government would continue to pay the portion that it says that it would do, and the private employer will pay a part of it, so that the employee, the young person, can afford to come to work. They can afford to buy lunch. They can afford to buy clothes to go to work. In the present program, that is a near impossibility. And they will get, more importantly, meaningful job experience. It may well be that some of those private employers may see the value of having such a person who, having been trained in their procedures and the requirements of their jobs to say that this is a person that we want to keep on beyond the time that they were there serving in the program, which in my view should be a minimum of 1 year. Now, the other points I wish to make with respect to that is there must be increasing opportunities for upskilling and lifelong learning through vigorous and well-managed continuing education programs. Now, this is so important because we understand that so many of our young people drop out of secondary school when they get to Form 2 or Form 3. What happens to them? Later on, a few years later, they may wish to continue in the education. Traditionally, some teachers have said you had your chance, you blew it, so therefore you're on your own. But we need to be able to continue to provide opportunities and to expand and build up the continuing education program so that those persons will be able to have the opportunity to improve their skills and to find meaningful work in the economy, in an area that they have seen to be a benefit to them and are willing to work and to put in the effort to complete the training. Those opportunities must always be available. Otherwise, we lose the skill and the talents of our people and they become less productive and unable to contribute to our national development in the way that we need them to. But I would say this, and you'd hear me speak more on it because I'm very concerned by the way in which the education system is being touted as this tremendous success, yet we see there are so many gaps and so many people who don't benefit in the way that they should from it. We need to be bold and to go further with TVET, technical and vocational education, to signal a real transition in our education system to focus on the needs of our young people and the needs of our economy as it exists in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And you will hear me say more about that as we go forward. I wish to also reiterate what I said in my address back, my national address on education, that we have to pay more attention to teach agriculture in the primary schools and in the secondary schools. We are an agricultural nation. There's some people who seem to think that we have transcended that and we don't need agriculture anymore. I don't believe that. I believe that we have tremendous potential in that area, but we must continue to foster skills and interest in agriculture, using new techniques and more productive techniques, of course, but we have to start with the teaching of them in our primary and secondary schools. Further, to develop the whole person, you hear a lot of is said about that, but not enough is being done. To develop the whole person and to promote our national culture, art, music, dance, and other forms of cultural expression must be regarded not merely as options, but as essential components of a modern education system and of a modern education for our young people. So they must be taught at all levels and in all schools and to everyone. I look forward to engaging in an honest, and I say honest because that is what is required. I look forward to engaging in an honest, far-ranging national conversation about the changes that we need to make in our education system to make it relevant and more useful for all of our people and for our society. It is a conversation in which We must all take part. Now, I want to also address a couple of related matters, which again focus on our young people. And this briefer. You will recall some time ago, at the funeral of our friend and colleague, the late Elvis Daniel, who ran as a candidate for the New Democratic Party on two occasions, in 2005 and in 2010. He was a pastor. He was best known, however, as a teacher. And he was a great teacher. He cared about his students and did his best to teach them, especially in mathematics. At his funeral earlier this year, with the blessings of his family and the encouragement of Senator Chevron John, our representative in North Windward, I said then in my tribute to our friend, the late Elvis Daniel, that we would establish a national award in his memory. I am announcing today, and following up on that pledge, officially the establishment by the New Democratic Party of the Elvis Daniel Mathematics Prize. The scope of the award and the criteria for selection of winners will be established by a committee that is appointed to deal with the matter in consultation with the president of our party, and those will be made public. The aim of the award is, of course, to honor the legacy of Elvis Daniel, yes, who, though unassuming and humble, inspired many to believe in themselves as they studied math and indeed other programs in school. It is more than this, though. The award is intended to encourage outstanding individuals at all levels and to recognize the contribution of those individuals, and to encourage and promote excellence in the study and teaching of mathematics and related subjects here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The award will be accompanied, of course, by financial and other benefits as resources permit, but they will be substantial. The hope is that this beginning will lead to more efforts by other organizations and individuals to promote excellence in all fields of endeavor in our country. We must always engage in the pursuit of excellence and never settle for less than our best. I invite everyone to participate in promoting the objectives of this award and in supporting it financially, now and as time goes by. And we must, of course, look for every opportunity to include other educational programs, such as in the technical and vocational fields, in our efforts to encourage participation and excellence in them. So you will hear us say more about this important award, and I am sure that it will be welcome news to our young people who will have an opportunity to compete for it and to win, and more importantly, to encourage all others to engage in the study of this important field of mathematics and similar fields. Now, similarly, I move on to another important development that we have in the New Democratic Party for our young people, And these are substantive matters that we are dealing with here, things that benefit and develop young people. I wish to officially here announce, you've heard it, I'm sure, on the radio or seen the poster, but to announce that the New Democratic Party will host a public speaking competition, or will we revive it because we've had it in the past, for young people. And that this is being led by the Young Democrats, which is the youth arm of our party. I want to congratulate them on that effort and initiative that they have shown in doing so, and to let everyone know that we are fully, as a political party, behind this effort, because we see the importance of this for the promotion and encouragement of our young people. Briefly, the competition will be held in 3 preliminary contests, each including 5 constituencies. And the first of these in Zone 1 will take place on September the 28th. That's on Thursday. And it will involve East Kingstown, North Windward, North Central Windward, South Windward, and South Central Windward. The winners of each of these 3 zones and the 2 next highest performers will proceed to the finals, which will be held later this year. The aim of the event is to encourage young people to participate in the discussion of important national issues, particularly as those matters relate to them. We believe that this is an effective way to prepare young people to participate meaningfully in shaping the affairs of our country. Their opinion, their input must matter. The contest at all levels is a public event, and everyone is invited to attend. So we hope that you will do so, and that we will see you at this important event. Now, to conclude, I wish to mention an upcoming event for us in the New Democratic Party. As you may have known, we have been, over the years, participating in town hall meetings in New York and in Toronto at various levels. So, next week, a team led by myself will travel to New York to hold a public speaking, to hold a town hall meeting at which, yes, I will be the public speaker. We will have a town hall meeting in New York in the usual place at the Friends of Crown Heights on Saturday, the 8th of October. Present will be the Honorable Daniel Cummings, the Honorable Chevron John, the Honorable, myself, the Leader of the Opposition, of course, and also we have the representative for the party in the constituency of East St. George, that is Laverne Velox, who will be there as well, and our esteemed public relations officer, last but not least, Laverne King. So we have a strong team of individuals who will travel to New York, will engage in the town hall meeting on October the 8th, and other activities as we normally would do in New York, and then journey to Toronto for a town hall meeting on the 15th of October, before returning to New York and then to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our diaspora is important to us. In fact, in the New Democratic Party in our Constitution, there is a place for an organization in New York where diaspora members are represented to be included in our national convention as a chapter of the party. We also have many, many interactions with various individuals and groups on fundraising issues, especially at around school time, and also on various other functions that we have here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and that they have in New York and elsewhere. So this is an important trip for us. I am looking forward to it. It's been a while since we have done so because, of course, we've had the interruption caused by the COVID pandemic, and we are looking forward to restarting this regular interaction with our community there in New York. So this is an exciting development for us, and we look forward to it. Now, finally, this afternoon, we have a football match where the Vincy Heat women's team will be taking on Bermuda. You should know this. And this is something that I want to engage and to encourage everyone to support, to promote our national team, and to give the young women our encouragement and support. Was it last week? There was a match between the men's team, or a week before, where St. Vincent and Bermuda men's team played an exciting match where St. Vincent prevailed 4-3. And we're looking forward to a similar outcome, but certainly, more importantly, we're looking forward to being there to support our young lady, our young women in their efforts. I am sure that they will do their best to represent their team, to represent themselves, and to represent their country. We should do our best as well. The least we can do is to be there to support them and to follow the game as they proceed. So I wish them all the best this afternoon, and I look forward to an exciting match. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perry. At this time, I will open the floor. If there are any questions from any of the media houses represented, you can feel free to indicate at this time. Ashford from the news, go ahead.
Thank you, Ashford. Yeah, good morning.
First question has to do with the cricket portion of World Cup cricket.
Yes.
And we have a situation well, but if we have to look at strength and security, we do have a situation where we have all these strengths resources, specifically to murder sheriff concern.
Yes.
I don't know how do you feel, what are your concerns about the level of security offered here?
Well, as far as you might know, the government, the police, they don't take us into their confidence with respect to such matters. You have heard me publicly have said that whenever there is, the most high-profile events tend to be the homicides that are committed. And we have called on the police to essentially do their work as effectively and efficiently as possible, and also the general public to assist in the investigation, because that's the only way that you can have effective policing. So the matter of security and personal security is one that I believe that all Vincentians feel. Because when you have violent offenses being committed and the perpetrators are not being, there are no convictions or solutions to these offenses, and we go all the way back, it's not just the homicide. I will always take the opportunity to mention this. You go all the way back to the people who plan their wrongs, and people go and steal their stuff. And the police do nothing about it, or very little about it, so that they become discouraged. I mean, this is something that we consistently urge the government to take seriously and to show real leadership on the issue. And of course, we have called for, especially when it comes to violence and homicides, for us as a country, really, to have a broad-based approach to this, to not treat it as a partisan political issue. Especially when you have the situation now where there are 38 homicides, I believe, thus far, and counting, and let's hope there are no more. Last year, we had a record year of 42. So obviously, we're going in the wrong direction. Now, I suppose that you asked the question in light of the fact that we are planning to have, that the government has said, well, at least the ICC has said that St. Vincent and the Grenadines will host T20 World Cup games, and so whether that will be, I would expect, a matter of concern that will be addressed by those persons who are organizing the event. And we are not, the local committee here is not the ones who are necessarily leading the organization. This is an international tournament that the International Cricket Council will deal with, and Cricket West Indies, I'm sure, will have a part to play. But let's hope that those concerns can be adequately addressed to allow for a great, wonderful tournament and for it to be held well, for the games that are held here to be a success.
What is you notice that your party has been involved in a lot of on the ground political movements, and I did hear later Sinclair Rock stated that you all are preparing for any eventuality you are actually prepared financially otherwise. Now, winning for an election, what are the big issues you think the electorate are going to be concerned about or consider?
Well, I don't have to speculate about it. I know because I go and talk to people. I don't stay in a bubble and try to figure out what people have on their mind. And the thing that people are most concerned about is they are finding it's difficult to make ends meet. Some people just cannot. Jobs are a key concern for people, especially young people, young men who have families, young children, and they can't provide for them because they don't have jobs that they can go to. Yet the government brags that there are jobs all over the place, you know, but that is a key concern. The cost of living, which is linked to the lack of jobs, the high unemployment rate. You know, there are 40% of young people are unemployed in this country, as by official figures. The unemployment rate overall is over 30%. Poverty has grown in the past 10 years under this administration. So that is what people tell us about. How are we going to make things better for them so that their children who come out of community college, they can find a job, you know, not have to wait 3-4 years and can't even get a part-time one. And when they do, they can't support themselves, so you can't pay bus fare to go to the job. That has to change for there to be a future in this country for young people and a future for this country overall. We have to be able to meet that need and to tell people that there is hope, that they can make a decent living here, they can raise their families here, and if they hope to retire here, then that is fine, because we will also fix the NIS.
Speaking of job creation and from the campaign, job, what areas of employment are you looking at? Are you looking at to provide, especially for the young people? And secondly, apart from that, are you looking at the industrial exercise approach as existed in previous administration?
Well, Ashford, let me just say thank you for noticing that we are out there talking to people, reaching people. We've been doing this for a long, long time. It took you a while to notice, but I'm glad that you have. And so, well, I'm glad for that, because the truth is that what I find, and this is a preliminary to the answer that you asked. What I find from our people when I go out and talk to people, you know, they don't expect you to have a magic wand that transforms their situation. They are real people. They know what life is like in St. Vincent. We are a poor country, and we all have to try and make the best of the situation that we have here, our talents and our whatever little resources we have, natural or otherwise. But our minds is our most valuable resource. So when we sit and talk to them, when I do, I listen because I want to learn from them what exactly that they expect from us and how we can do this together. And so in terms of some of the jobs, there are people who are farmers. They have been working at this all their lives. You know, when they leave that, what do they do? And they pick up a trowel or a shovel and go and say they're into construction, or they can do mason work or carpentry and so forth. Some of them try it. But very often they find that they don't have the skill, because even when people were leaving agriculture, you see, they were leaving and coming into Kingstown, some to do, you know, jobs that don't pay them very well. There was no plan on the part of the government to say, well, how do we retrain such persons to meet the jobs that are now? You know, they just simply said, well, listen, you gotta go fend for yourself. So some of the areas in which we have to invest in our economy, you might have heard me talk about this at our Hope Rally in Georgetown some time ago, but we've spoken about it repeatedly because it's essential for people to understand that we have a plan for developing the economy of this country. You cannot run a country without a functioning economy. You can't beg and borrow for everything, you know. You have to have the private sector involved in creating jobs and business opportunities. So agriculture is one of the pillars of development of our country. We cannot have a country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, without a functioning and viable agricultural sector. Changes will have to be made, of course, in terms of how we produce things, to use technologies that may attract younger persons, greenhouse technology, using things like, you know, new forms of farming, the irrigation systems, using science and technology to help us to increase the productivity of our farming. So that's an essential component of it. And that was one of the major employers, as you well know, in our economy. But if you can't guarantee that you can pay people that you hire because you don't know what you're going to get for your crops when you reap them, then obviously people are not going to take the risk. They're not fools. They're rational business people too. So we talk about also the blue economy. There's so much potential there. In our fishing sector, for example, we've spoken about this. It seems to me so clear as to what we need to do. Yet this government, they are stumbling from one project to another, as if this is some sort of, you know, a weekend thing. When in fact you have to have a plan to say, we're going to develop, if it's the fishing sector, this is how we're going to do it. They talk about you have $10 million available, or $6 million available for lending on to various persons to get into the industry. Well, how many people have taken advantage of it? Where is the transformation that the IMF spoke about way back in 2017 to say, well, you have to move from subsistence fishing to one that is more commercially based, and to marry that, to balance it with conservation. But the government, they did very little, they did nothing. They talk about the money is here and so forth, then you ask a question which I did in Parliament, well, how many people have taken advantage of it? Where is the transformation that you can see on the ground? Not you talking in an office about what you want to do. When I meet with the people who come here as diplomatic representatives, you know, especially those that come from countries that have, you know, fishing, large fishing industries, with Chile or Portugal, England, and so forth. That's one of the things I ask most of all. What is our potential here? How can you assist us so that we could transform from this thing where you get in a pirogue and you go out in the morning at 5 o'clock, before you turn the headline, you're completely wet and your eyes red. You come back in at 10 o'clock, you know, with 100 pounds of fish, and then have to walk around the place trying to sell it like a mendicant. When in fact, this is an important industry that we can be developing. We have not done well by our fisher folk. We tend to treat them as somehow that they are, you know, the least of the economic sectors, when in fact, this is one of the most important economic sectors that we can develop in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And we will put a lot of effort and emphasis on that. And that is why I want to create, again, in the New Democratic Party, to bring back a national development bank that you could lend on to such small enterprises. These people can't go to the commercial banks to borrow money, you know? And even when they borrow the money, there's nobody there giving them the assistance and the coaching and the guiding and the framework in which for them to succeed. A development bank has that function. It's not there to make money. It is there to make those investors, those small businesses, and I call the fisher folk businesses, to make them succeed, because when they do so, then they can pay back and lend on. And so you'll have an environment where they have support. to make them succeed. So that's another area. So that's two. Then we also have the tourism sector, which has tremendous potential. Everybody tells us St. Vincent and Grenadine, the most beautiful country in the entire Caribbean. I go further than that. Most beautiful country in the world. You know, and we have so much potential, but we have not yet tapped, 10% of what we're capable of. So that's an area we have to invest massively in to make sure that we get our tourism moving again and make the airport, that is the Argyle International Airport, economically viable. Because now it is not, it is a long-term project. But in order to shorten that space, we have to rapidly develop our tourism infrastructure so that we can have benefit from that. And then, of course, we have the other areas that I call together the new economy. People call them different things in all various colors, or orange economy, or talking about creating the arts and creating not just see them as cultural expression. That is valuable and important because culture is so vital to a country. It is what shapes your identity. It is what says, this is what Vincentians are. This is who we are. And that is something that we need to do, but we don't have enough emphasis on that. And where we're doing the arts and culture, the music and so forth, the handicraft industry, all of those things we will develop. And jobs will be created and economic opportunities will be created in those areas.
Even as we talk about job creation and looking at the youth, there is an issue, and it's not a no issue, with children and twenty before then. There are quite a number of young people on the street. They have not completed secondary education. They do not have formal skills. And we've seen that there is an coach and we've seen a lot of persons coming to the coach. Now, what plans do you have to capture this segment or this section of people?
Well, you said you kind of hit on it somewhat. I mean, my presentation about technical and vocational education that I presented here and in my address on education, that is part of the solution to the problem. A lot of people drop out of school because they don't have the alternate programs. When I say alternate, they don't have the varied program. I wouldn't call them alternative programs. We don't have the broad base of programs necessary to keep those people interested in finishing secondary school. The least that a young person should be able to do is to finish secondary school in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that means that we have to provide a more varied set of programs that will enable them to do so and the support to do it. And so those persons will have real means to provide for themselves. Of course, there are those who they leave for other reasons and they get into trouble. We have said that one of the things that you do is you don't say that a young person's get into trouble is gone for life. You have to have alternate programs to try to, especially persons who are involved in nonviolent offenses, to guide them back onto the more productive path. And that is something that we need to have here. We don't have that here. We have this mentality that if you screw up, then it's your fault, and therefore the hammer falls on you heavily. But these are persons, especially when they're young, that will live in society for a much longer time than many of us. So we have to provide our challenges for them to be able to get back on track. That's an opportunity to get them back into the schooling system in some form so that they can make a way for themselves and see themselves going, completing such a program. So those are some of the things that we need to do, and we are not yet there. And you see from the admission of the Minister of Education in that stunning statement that he made some time ago, that a week ago, that the education system essentially is admitting that they have failed a lot of those people. Yes, for the traditional academic program, we have high flyers and excel and must continue with that. But we also have to broaden it so that it benefits the majority of the people, not just the exceptional ones.
And just before I take someone else an opportunity.
Well, thank you.
There's a question I just want to ask.
Well, if we can't answer it here now, you can send it in writing.
Okay. But it's central thing something is the same place. You've been speaking about the Vincentian Association of Retired Elderly Persons. improvement of or an improvement on the Vincent Association of Senior Citizens of St. Vincent University, ASCOBAT. That was founded by Sir Rupert John. Is it meant to be
Well, I don't know. I don't think Major would tell you that that was the case. That, I mean, just to, you finish your question? Or?
No, sorry. Secondly, will this be done in tandem with or in conjunction with the public assistance program? Just another batch, perhaps.
Ashwat, there's a lot that needs to be done with our public assistance. Major, in his presentation of the program or the organization to represent elderly persons, basically look at that component of it, which is extremely important. And essentially what he's saying is that not enough is being done, and I agree entirely. And it's something that we support as a party. And to go back a bit, he didn't just talk about retired persons. You asked me a bit earlier about job creation and so on. You will well know that one of the things that Major has talked about as well is improving and something that we in the party and in the manifesto have adopted is to improving the food processing industry, getting value added from the stuff that we produce. So that's another area of tremendous economic potential. But in terms of the program to assist and to an organization to promote the welfare and advocate on behalf of elderly persons, that is very much something that is needed. And it's an initiative that I think is very insightful on the part of him to present it, and he's very passionate about it, and one that we embrace and support in the Democratic Party. And of course, there's a lot more that can be done. The homes that are provided for persons, elderly persons, the availability of such facilities in St. Vincent is woefully lacking, but we can deal with that at another time.
Well, I'm glad that's good enough answer because there is a controversy. Homeless elderly, so it is going to capture just in the same way that I asked about the youth on the street. It is meant to capture the homeless.
Well, I am sure that it would advocate on behalf of all elderly persons. An organization of that sort would do so, but it has to have support, from state and also from the broader community. For persons, it's a voluntary thing. Persons will become part of it and contribute. You've had similar organizations in other countries where they provide services at a private level, and then there are things that are done at the level of the state. But certainly those kinds of state and private or semi-private partnerships and so forth, they're necessary in our country. The government can't do everything. So individuals leading an organization like that would be a very powerful advocate for elderly persons, and one that I think will do a lot to bring to the fore the issues that are confronting them. And there are many, you're quite right. The other day we had a discussion where they were talking about a bill that advocate on the rights and so forth for elderly persons, and that is something that will come before the Parliament. But it's a matter that we have as a party given a lot of to, and the initiative that was indicated by Major Leacock is one that we embrace and will follow through on.
Thank you very much, Ashford.
Zero response. This is, I'm glad that you raise it. I have reflected on this to think, well, why is it that the leader of the opposition will write on something as important as this to the chairman of the Public Service Commission and not even an acknowledgement that the letter was received? And that is simply not acceptable. Because the concern that I raised, and for the members of the public who may not be aware of what the concern was, the concern I raised in that letter to the Public Service Commission was regarding the appointment of Deborah Charles as the Clerk of the House of Assembly, while she had just been a candidate for the ULP in the recent election. She had been, up to the last election, a member of the parliament, a senator appointed by the ULP, advocating on behalf of that party. And while she still had an active website that was advocating on behalf of the ULP. And how is it that you can essentially put on a robe and then come into the chamber and say that you're an independent person who will look out for the best interests of all the members of the parliament? It just simply doesn't fly. And I was not the only one who raised this issue. The members of the Public Service Union, the leadership, also raised the issue publicly. But we have not had a response, to answer your question directly, from the chairman of the Public Service Commission, not even to acknowledge that the letter had been received. And I know it was received because it was delivered by hand. Thank you. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you again at another round of activities and events. And those of you who are listening online, thank you as well for joining us this afternoon.
We can have that conversation just